went to Dunkin' Donuts like I did every morning to get my coffee, and my debit card got declined for the $2.68. And I said, okay, so this is another humbling moment. This is the make it or break it moment. I'm like, I just need to do something that makes me happy, doing readings. I thought I just had a bad case of ADD, but I would actually be seeing people behind them. I just didn't know how to put the puzzle pieces until I actually started to really hone in on that. And I always say, like a big puzzle where we dump the puzzle pieces on the floor and we kind of just start trying to piece them together.
Do you see images? Because when I was watching a lot of the readings, these spirits are giving details.
One experience that I had was a woman whose son was dying. He was dying. He was in a coma. And she came to me for a reading. So I wasn't with them. He was still here. He's still alive, but he was in a coma. And as I'm talking to her and giving her information about her son, the nurse calls and says there's tears running down his eyes right now, and his heartbeat is increased. So he was still here, but yet he was able to communicate. Telepathy goes way beyond what we think.
Welcome back to the Sageful Living podcast. Today we are joined by Tiffany Rice. Tiffany is a spirit medium, and Tiffany and I actually grew up together. So this is so exciting. And here we are coming together for this amazing episode to talk about what a spirit medium is, what they do, and how they help people. So Tiff, thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. I love doing podcasts. I love being able to, especially doing your podcast. It means so much to me.
Thank you. So let's start off. Tell us a bit about your background. I have so many questions of how you got into this, but so tell us about your background.
So I have been a full-time spirit medium for the last 13 years. I'm a corporation, and I loved energy work from early on. Always had a vivid imagination, and I always knew that there was more out there than what was in front of us. But I wasn't really sure how that all worked. I just lived in like a fantasy world. And then as I got a little bit older, I realized that there was something called Reiki. And Reiki is Japanese, as you know. And so there was somebody that I worked with that said, oh, let me introduce you to Reiki. And so she got me this Reiki book and I learned all about it. It's all about energy. So back in 2008, I decided, you know what, I'm going to do this. I want to know more about energy. And so I became a Reiki master teacher back in 2008. But even before that, I can remember instead of going to like pit parties, I'd go get my cards read and then go to Chili's and talk about my reading. Fast forward, I became a Reiki master teacher. I started taking meditation classes. And I decided to take a mediumship class. And I took this one class. I was paired up with someone because I was like, oh, this is just part of my journey of understanding what spirituality is. And when I gave my very first reading, it was just something that was second nature to me. And I thought, well, that was easy, but can everybody do this? Because I can remember in high school being with like having a boyfriend that played baseball. I remember seeing him up to bat and I'm like, oh, he's going to get a home run, and he'd get a home run. I remember having conversations with people, and as they're talking to me, I thought I just had a bad case of ADD, but I would actually be seeing people behind them. But again, vivid imagination. I just didn't know how to put the puzzle pieces together until I actually started to really hone in on that. And that was one, learning more about Reiki. That was my gateway. It was my gateway into becoming spiritual. And then taking the class of mediumship. That's when I thought, you know what, I really, really enjoy this, and something that's second nature for me. And I started to just focus in and do more work in the medium field, because I felt even with Reiki, the mediumship was just more of something that I felt a heart connection to. And like I said, I took the meditation classes. I teach meditation now. I took angel card reading classes, tarot reading classes, like anything you can get your hands on. I've done the sound bowl healing. Like I just wanted to experience it all. So I was like, let me dive in. I know this is where I want to be. I just didn't know what level I wanted to be at. But the mediumship was where I felt at home. That's where I felt connected to it. So I started off first by, of course, you go through your friends and family because you're like, oh, I've got this new trick. Let me try it out, and so I started doing that. And then it grew into, oh, I'm going to do house parties now. So then I would have people grab 10 of their friends and I'd go to their homes and do house parties. And then it got to the point where I had to make a decision on I'll tell you the turning point. The real turning point was I was married and I was at a company for 9 years, and it was a company that was lackluster to me. I love the people there. I made a lot of good friends, but there wasn't something that was fulfilling my soul. I knew it wasn't my sole purpose. So, but I had that job, and I was nervous to leave because at the time I was making really great money. So I was money driven, and that was it. And so when I went through my divorce, I also lost that job. I got laid off from that job, and I got in my first car accident. So I lost my car, and I moved out of the home that I had with my ex-husband. So it was like a huge do-over. And I did what I had to do. I got a therapist. So so I started with therapy, and she was really good. She's like, all right, Tiff, well, let's figure this out. What do you need? I go, I need a job. So I got a job working at a dermatologist, and to give me just enough money to get my own place. And I laugh because I'm like, it was literally just giving me just enough money. But she said, okay. I went back to her and I said, I got the house or the apartment. I got the job to, pay my bills. And she's like, okay, well, what else? And because I knew the job wasn't a career, but it was just something that was temporary to serve a purpose. And I said, I'm like, I just need to do something that makes me happy. Like I want to be happy. So I'm going to choose happiness. And she says, okay, well, what is that for you? And I said, doing readings. So I started to do more readings while I had the dermatologist job. And my waking moment was I went to Dunkin' Donuts like I did every morning to get my coffee, and my debit card got declined for the $2.68. And I said, okay, so this is another humbling moment. This is the make it or break it moment. I knew what I wanted to do. I had to build my clientele, but I really need to take this leap of faith. And so I ended up giving a 2 month notice because I was scared. I let my fears get in the way, but I gave my 2 month notice, and I left my job and became a full time spirit medium. And what that meant to me was doing more house parties, doing more clientele. It was all like referral based. So 99% of my clientele was from word of mouth. And at the time, it was primarily just people in New England. Give and take, I might get a random person that lives in Florida or California. But that's kind of how I started. That's how I grew my business. And I never looked back, because once I allowed myself to align with what my full potential was and let go of all the fear of thinking that I might fail, because I really had nothing to lose at that point with a failed marriage, a high paying job that was gone, no car. I mean, I did get a car, but like I had to really start from scratch. And so that's why I said, I just knew I needed to be happy. And so I went full throttle with doing what my passion was. And it did take a while. It took a while. It wasn't an overnight thing, and for a little while I had my own show. It was just a local cable access show called Spirit Connections with Tiffany Rice, where I gave it was before podcasts, right? So I gave a platform for other spiritual entrepreneurs to talk. So I made a lot of connections, and I did a lot of networking. And fast forward, I know I'm giving you guys the Cliff Notes version, but fast forward, I ended up making a connection with a company called Dune Jewelry. So I have a spiritual line of jewelry with them. And then about a year later, I ended up, my family came to me, my nephews, who are obviously, they're a lot younger, they were in college, and they said, we need to get your stuff on TikTok. And I said, I would love to. And they said, we're going to put your readings, because now I was doing gallery readings. A gallery reading is when everybody is in a big group. I've done readings of 10 people to 200 to 300 people. So they started showing up to my gallery readings, and they started to film my readings. a couple of my videos had gone viral. I was getting millions of views. And so I went from getting 20 emails a day to 2,000 emails a day from people all over the world that wanted a reading. And, the beautiful thing about that is that it was, they felt a connection. They felt that human bond, that connection to grief. They had either lost someone, maybe it was a reading where I was bringing a mother through, and then they lost their mom, and because they would send me an email and they said, I really felt connected to your video because I also lost my mom. And, I just know that my mom's here with me. So thank you for putting that out there. So then we just started filming all the readings we could and putting it on social media. And now it's moved on over to Instagram as well. And so I went from, like I said, people from New England with the random Florida or California reading to now people international. Like the other day, I did private readings for, the first reading was someone in Turkey, then Amsterdam, then Italy, then California. And that's just one day, but it just goes to show we're united in grief. And doing the work that I do, we're all intuitive to a certain degree. Just some of us are tuned in differently. You ask me to play soccer and that's a whole other, like I can run and kick a ball, but that's definitely not one of my strengths. But being able to be highly intuitive and helping people, that's something that I truly love to do. And I know that I made the right decision. And so now I'm able to teach classes and enjoy my life. I have a really blessed life, and I'm human just like you, so I have my moments, but I'm really happy that I made the choice, which was choosing my own happiness. And I knew from early on that that was what my happiness was being able to give readings to people.
There's so many things I want to pull out. So if I go way back to the beginning, first of all, Reiki seems to be a gateway for a lot of people into spirituality.
Yes.
I had a few guests on, and Reiki is always has been. Oh, I started with Reiki. Someone introduced me to Reiki, so I want our audience to know how amazing that is. That there are so many classes out there, and for the audience to see again, here's a healer that says it was this and this and this and this. Like we build upon everything, and it may not be used within our services, but we have all this huge toolbox because we are so curious about these modalities and these worlds. And then you land upon the thing that resonates the most and feels that's your true gift. So if there are people as well out there in the audience that are feeling that they have an intuition, they have a gift, start somewhere. Start with Reiki. Start with
Mhm.
some course or a book or a podcast that's going to give you more awareness and help you start tap into your intuition. Then you get into about your dark night of the soul and the universe kind of throwing everything at you at once. Right? Here's your divorce, you have to move, you lose the job, you the car accident. It's like the universe is like, listen, 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 you need to make a change, whether you like it or not. And the fact that you listened and you followed your truth and your passion is just an example I want everybody to see, because it is one of the hardest things to do, is to have that faith and trust that this is it, this is what I'm supposed to do, and this will bring me prosperity and ability to survive and take care of myself, because this is the right thing to do. So that's amazing. So
Right.
tell us, what is a spirit medium reading?
So what I do is I connect to your loved ones in spirit. So I can bring through friends, family, pets come through too. You can expect to feel a sense of comfort, validation. It's okay to be emotional during a reading. A lot of times people will start to get emotional, and the first thing they say is, I'm sorry. And I go, why? Because you're human and you miss your loved one. Like, I cry at a drop of a hat. Like, and a lot of times when I do the reading, I cry with you because I feel it. So you can feel that sense of comfort and peace. And I always say, with the information that they give, because a lot of times people get scared, and I say there's nothing to be scared of. It's always the information that you need to know, not necessarily what you want to know, but what you need to know. But it's almost like a big puzzle where we dump the puzzle pieces on the floor and we kind of just start trying to piece them together. Because Oh, and I also joke, I'm like, it's also talking to someone with major ADD, because we'll be talking about 1985 in 1 second, and then we're talking about Thanksgiving in the next. So, so we do kind of go back and forth. But ultimately, people do reach out for a reading because they want to connect to that loved one in spirit. So when we start the reading, which is by phone call, I don't even do virtual, because as you know, well, Sue knows, I have 3 dogs at home. So I'm sure during this podcast, you're going to get a taste of those 3 dogs. So I'm praying that they're quiet. But I usually do by phone because we are all energy. So it doesn't matter if you can see each other or not. It doesn't help with the connection anymore. It's pretty much a comfort thing. But I start out and I usually say, make sure you take notes, because a lot of times the information could take a good 24, 48 hours to register. And so it's good to reflect back onto your notes. And I just go in with, for me, I always start, it's strong female energy, strong male energy, and then I go from there, and I just use all of my senses, all of my clairs, to really understand what it is that they're trying to show me. So it's interesting though. Spirit does work on like your database or your signpost, so to speak, too. So you have to just realize that the information that I'm getting has nothing to do with me. So the important thing as a reader is I take my ego out and just give you exactly what I'm being told.
Do you see images? Because when I was watching a lot of the readings, and what's so amazing is that these spirits are giving details. So
Yeah.
it's like that person sitting there is not going to be doubting it because they're giving details. You're like, there's a necklace, you wear him. And the
Yeah.
person looks at you and says, this is his ashes.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
or they'll talk about a color, or they'll talk about a specific incident. They'll give details. So I think that is what fascinates me. Do you see images, or is it really just you're tuning into thoughts that they're giving you?
They're in control of what they show me. So yes, a lot of times I do get images, and it's almost like a memory. So if I said, okay, Sue, where's your driveway outside? And you can think of what your house looks like outside, and you can visualize where your driveway is, right? So I would get that information as a picture, just like it's like a memory, but it's not my memory. And
Right,
so when I get those images, I just do the best of my ability as being as detailed as I can.
right.
And that's, or even like I'll hear things, like I'll hear names. And when I hear names, it's almost as if they're driving by me going 100 miles an hour, yelling out the window, you know?
Steven!
Yeah, yeah. Like I always say, I'm like, guys, think of the name Mary, right? I'll hear it as like Mary. And I'm like, okay, so it's either Mary, Marie, Maria. So we kind of have to think a little bit outside the box when we hear things. If I'm hungry, a lot of times I'll taste food, taste like maybe like something that they used to cook, a restaurant they used to go to. I might be able to smell perfume, cigarette smoke. So it really is whatever it is that they want to show me, they will show me.
They will show you.
Yeah.
And this ability to connect, are you able to turn it on and off? So, like, I have a friend who, when she started to open up to things like this, she said, as I was headed to church, I could
Mhm.
feel they were at the door waiting for me. And she's like, and the spirits would be pinching me. She said, and I had to learn to say, no, I'm in church. This is my time. I will
Yeah,
come to you another time. So, is that
I
something you had to learn as well?
yes, I set my boundaries pretty well. Like just here in the physical world and with spirit, I set my boundaries pretty well. So, does it happen sometimes? Yeah. Like that's another question of people because of TV, people will say, "Do you just go up to people in the shopping like while you're shopping and say, "Hey, your dad's with you?" And I said, "Could I?" Yes. Do I? No, because there's that level of professionalism, right? Like of course if I knew, like if I was in an area where people wanted a reading and I knew they wanted a reading, that's a welcoming space. But I don't know if someone is one open to a reading. I don't know what level of grief they're at. I don't know if they want to believe, so it's not my place to be able to say something.
Yeah.
um yeah,
Provide
you
unsolicited information. That's, yeah.
Right, right. Like if somebody, I believe me, if somebody wanted to say something to me on the street, I'd welcome it with open arms. And I'm pretty sure everybody listening to this podcast would be like, yes, give me all, like I want to know. But we also have to think of like the other part of the population that
Yeah.
just isn't into it. So you just never know who you're going to meet. But yes, sometimes spirit does slip through and I can get information too.
Right. You set those boundaries. Stories that you want to share from any of your readings or any of your galleries, anything that stood out to you or anything that scared you?
Um, well, I haven't been scared, and I was the medium for the Conjuring House, which is one of the most haunted locations. Which is, if you're familiar with the movie, there was a movie called The Conjuring House, The Conjuring. Sorry, that was put out in 2013, I believe. So I was the medium for that location. I've done events at Lizzie Borden's. I love the paranormal field. It's fun. Yeah, yeah. So I do a lot of those. I travel. But as far as readings go, I feel like I've seen and heard it all. Um, Whether it's I had three people when I first started. There was three people that came in to get a reading, and it was a husband and wife and one other person. And their friend came through and in spirit, and they were so excited. And afterwards, that the one single person asked me, she's like, "Oh, can I have a reading? Can I set up a private reading?" And I said, "Yeah, that's fine." So she came to me a little while later, and I said, "Oh, your friend and spirit's coming through again." And he started giving all different types of information. And I said, "Wait a minute, like he's saying like how much he loved you. Did you have a relationship?" She said, "We were in a relationship and nobody knew about it." So it was a little juicy, but he never brought that up in the presence of the couple that came. So it's really funny. So that's one thing as someone who is like receiving a message, because a lot of times people will say to me like, "Oh, can so and so be part of this reading? Like can I bring this person and that person?" And I always say like, if it, if you want, but you also got to remember it does change the dynamic of what the message is depending on who you have sitting in that room with you. So yeah, so I've gone through readings where it was really juicy. There was one other reading where her cousin was missing, and so I gave her some pertinent information of what I was getting. And her cousin was missing. I believe it was in the 80s that she had gone missing. And 2 years later, she sends me an email and she goes, "Listen, I just want you to know I took notes of our reading. And since then," and she listed off everything that I said, ended up making sense because they found a person of interest that had kidnapped somebody else. And I like told her what his nickname was. I told her where he could be found. I told her, like all the information. But at the time of the reading, she was like, "I'm just going to take it all in and see what happens." So it took 2 years. And that's one thing I want to touch base upon too, because when I get certain information, spirit doesn't run on a timeline, right? There's no such thing as time. Like we have time here on this earth. We have time, but they don't run on a timeline. So if I get something, I will say, "Yeah, like I feel like it's going to be happening. It either just happened or it could be happening, but I want you to hold on to it." I'm not giving you a time period of like in the next 30 days, pay attention. It's always spirit runs on their own time. So we always have to keep that in the back of our minds too. But yeah, I've had some pretty juicy stories come up where even, you know, well, I always say I always ruin surprises because I've brought up like, "Oh my gosh, you're pregnant?" Because I see you're pregnant. I did, one time I was in Philadelphia doing a gallery reading and I'm like, "Oh, you're engaged? You're getting engaged?" And the girl went to the bathroom and he goes, "I have the ring. I'm going to propose to her." And so he proposed at the gallery reading. So it was like the first and only engagement at my gallery reading.
So you just say what's coming through because really you're a conduit. It's not like you
Yeah,
said before, you're out of your ego. It's not you, it's coming through you. And like I'm sure
right.
the spirit is so happy to have
Yes.
like such a light, and I'm sure in your life you have to keep yourself light and keep yourself grounded so that you can do this work.
Exactly. Yep, 1,000%. A
Yeah.
thousand percent. So yeah, that's why it is. It really is just so important. So, and there's also that bedside manner, you know, because I will get pretty graphic information, but I always have to remember that the person sitting across from me is their loved one. So, you have to give grace with that too. So, and
And
that's what I would say too, if anybody's training to be a medium, like you always keep in mind that the person, you don't want to feed our, like, I feel like expressing or telling them every little detail that could be extremely graphic would be more so feeding our own ego instead
Right.
of them hearing and seeing the graphic details of things.
Right, because some of the people in the spirit world did not necessarily get there in the nicest way.
Right.
Right. And you see that.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there anything else that you want to add around mediumship or you feel that our audience should know or that are curious about this?
I would just say it's, you know, it's great to be open. It's great to be open. If you're looking to get a reading, do your research on readers. And what I say by that, like, do they have a website? Do they have a platform? Do they have referrals? Do they have, like, not just like in anything in life, you always want to, you don't hire your first plumber that comes to the house, right? Like, you go and you get an estimate, and then you see what their reviews are, and you see what their job is. Like, it's, I find that it's really important to do that when you're getting a reading, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I feel
Well,
like
and
that.
that's why we're here with you today because you're going to be, the referral for the sanctuary and for Sageful Living. So, yeah, I'm with you, and I'm the same way. I don't refer people that I don't personally use, as well.
Right.
So word of mouth and referrals is really important.
Here's a big question. A lot of people want to know how animals can come through, right? Because with animals, they can't talk. They don't talk. So a lot of times what they'll do is they'll show me. Like, I'll feel how they're feeling, or they'll show me certain things. Like, they'll show me if they had a favorite blanket, or maybe what they looked like, you know.
Oh, that's
Um,
incredible.
I absolutely love it. And I find more people cry with their pets rather than their humans, you know?
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Because it's with pets, they love us selflessly, you
Yeah.
know?
It's so unconditional. It really is a different love. I've been
Hmm.
thinking about that a lot lately as I'm coming up on a year without my dog, and it is such a different relationship. And every dog in my family that I'm around, I love them so much, and I do. It's such a different bond, and that's interesting that you have to preface that of how the animals come through. I didn't even think of that, but some people would
Right.
say that, and they would question it, and be like, "But he didn't talk." So I get that. Yeah,
Right, because
and
we can't, like, wrap our brains around it, But, I always find the beautiful thing about animals, because I do a lot with animal and animal rescue and so forth too, is that, it is, like you said, that unconditional love. And we always have that one soul dog or soul cat or soul, like, that's what I call it. Like, I had my Lillian Marie, who I had for 12 years, and she ended up passing in my arms. And as much as I love my three dogs, they have different personalities in her. Lily was meant to be my soul dog. And, you know, again, I'd show you Stanley, but he's actually being good and I don't want to disrupt him. But I love all my dogs, but there's always just that one dog or one cat. Like I said, whatever. If you're an animal person, I know you guys know what I'm talking about, you know? Um,
I get that so much because no, I will never have the relationship I had with Ollie with any other dog. I know that. I know that
yeah,
he and I were a soulmate, whether he was in a past life. I believe that our souls continue, and I believe that I know his soul. And yeah, he was my soul dog 100%. Oh, that's so interesting. Do spirits ever tell you where they are? Like,
so
like,
yeah, that's a
right?
good question
Because
too. Because people say, are they in heaven? Like, where are they? And I always kind of keep the religious stuff at bay, because there's some extreme people, I just say, you believe what you believe in, whatever. So I always say they're here with us, but they're on a different dimension,
yeah, okay.
to be safe. The beautiful thing during a gallery reading, it happened last night. I had a reading, and there was two people that didn't know each other, and there one had a sister that passed at 17, and the other person had a daughter that passed at 17. And both of those girls in spirit, again, didn't know each other, but they helped each other come through in the reading. And they had a very similar path in their life here. And so it was just I joke about it sometimes. I'm like, they're like, oh, are you going? The event was at the Serendipity place. So I said, are you going to the Serendipity place? Yeah, I'm going to the Serendipity place too. And they just help each other out. They just are so much more they just operate in such a higher vibration than us. So it's all intertwined. They know everything.
Amazing.
So
Have you listened to the telepathy tapes?
no.
Nonverbal autistic children are communicating telepathically. Yeah.
So I think it's beautiful. And one experience that I had was a woman whose son was dying. He was dying. He was in a coma. And she came to me for a reading. So I wasn't with them. He was still here. He's still alive, but he was in a coma. And so as I'm talking to her and giving her information about her son, the nurse calls and says there's tears running down his eyes right now, and his heartbeat is increased. So he was still here, but yet he was able to communicate. Telepathy goes way beyond what we think,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I'm so excited for everything that we got into today, and I hope that our audience enjoyed this and understands more about mediumship and also understands that pathway into spirituality just has to begin somewhere. Maybe it begins with a reading. So here at Stage for Living, right? So here at Stage for Living podcast, I love to ask my guests how they live their life aligned. What are some of your daily practices to keep you in alignment?
I'm a pro advocate. I'm very pro therapy, so I like to go to therapy, but I do go to the gym because I have to also take care of my body. So I love being able to go to the gym. I make sure I have time to spend with my dogs. I have no. I'm not married. So any other singles out there, but I'm not married. I have my dogs, so I am. That's how I fill my cup. I make sure I get to see my friends as much as I can, go out to dinner with them, and just enjoy my time and honor my space and honor what time I have here. So that's how I fill my cup. I I'm just at this point in my life where I'm just like being able to set healthy boundaries feels really good to me. And like I also love to sleep. So lately I've been going to bed pretty early. I don't know if it's because of the gym or what. But I've been going to bed pretty early, and I've been really enjoying getting a full 8 hours of sleep.
It's
So that's something that
prioritizing. Yeah, prioritizing sleep is important. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But I've also been saying yes. Like this past year, I've been saying yes to everything because I live in such a world of grief every single day, all different forms of grief every single day. And I lost my mom recently, and losing her. It actually started when I lost my dad 26 years ago, but my mom has joined him, and it just really made me think like we only have a certain amount of time on this planet. And one of the big things you can do is focus in on living. It's okay to hold space for our grief, but focus in on the living. Do the things that you want to do. Take the risk. I've been saying yes to a friend of mine. A friend of mine had a friend that was going to Hawaii that I didn't even really know very well, but she's like, Tiff, go to Hawaii and you have a place to stay. And I said, okay, because I wanted to go to Hawaii. So I did. And it was a little daring, but whatever. I did it. I've been wanting to get out there and see the world because for me, that's what's important. I joined a book club so I could be more social with people. So because being connected to death for hours upon hours a day, you have to be able to have some sort of balance. So that's why the gym, going to therapy, making plans with your friends. I joined a book club for the social aspect. Sometimes I don't even finish the book, but but it's just for the social aspect because that's part of living too. We don't want to get so hyper focused in on like just this one area of our life. We need to find that balance. So that's what I've been working on. And it's been a little bit of a struggle, but you know, I'm getting out there doing my thing. And there's one other thing that I wanted to bring up is that I did put out a book called 365 Messages from Your Loved Ones in Spirit. So for those of you that are going through the grieving process, I created a book where I actually connected and came out with 365 messages from Spirit. And it's an active daily journal. You can get it on Amazon. And it basically, you can, I sold out them, so I don't have them. I'm like, wait, I should have one. But you can say, okay, like for me for a while, I'd say, all right, Dad, what do you need me to know today? And I'd flip the page and I'd look down and it would say a little message. And then there's room to write, so you can journal and, have your conversation with your loved one in spirit. And I find that again, it's for a full year you want to do this. And I feel like that helps with the grieving process. So if you are looking to, you know, beyond, or just have like a different type of different modality of healing, it's called 365 Messages from Your Loved Ones in Spirit. You can get it on Amazon. That's my plug, Sue.
No, I will make sure I will make sure that there's a link in the show notes for that because that is so important. I have to tell you that when my father passed away, my mother was recommended one was a journal type thing and one was a book, and they helped her immensely. So when people call me with grief when they've lost someone, I always do recommend that, and I will add your book to the list because that is very important. We all know that grief is a very hard thing, and it's different not only for everyone, it's different even for who you lose and when you lose, and in your life. So there's no rule books for grief, and thankfully there's people like Tiff that are here to offer some guidance and offer a connection back to those loved ones that we miss, that we know have messages for us. So thank you, Tiff. Thank you for being here. Thank you for what you bring to the world. I'm going to play us out. So you can find Tiffany on her website, tiffanyrice.com. She's Spirit Tiff on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, and watch her videos and be amazed and book your reading. I'm going to be booking soon because I want to talk to my dad. I look forward to that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.